It is Thursday, December 11th, and you're watching the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. Snake, as we've done before, we're going to go into the comments section here and grab a topic from one of you. Okay, you sent in a topic last week that we saved for this show here because I think it's really interesting. And it's about how to build a draft ranking or a draft list and taking into consideration different positions. How do you compare a goaltender to a forward? We're going to discuss all of that. It's going to make for a great discussion. A little later on, we're going to get to some World Junior talk. Okay, it's December, middle of December, and that means World Juniors is about to start, folks. We've got some rosters. We're going to talk early favorites. We're going to talk players of interest. Which guys do you need to be keying in on? A little later on, of course, we're going to get the Snake's hot take, and we've got 2 mailbag questions today. It's going to be a really fun show. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Trust the process. The sickest NHL prospect podcast with Snake and Shayne.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2024 NHL Draft, the Montreal Canadiens are proud to select Ivan Demidov.
It's gonna be sick.
That's right, producer Shayne here, joined as always by my counterpart, Simon, the Snake Boisvert. Snake, how are we feeling today?
Snowed in.
It's bad. It's bad. So, PSA for the people watching here. We were talking about going to the studio again today to film another podcast, in person. It's more fun that way. Of course it is. But anybody who lives in the Montreal area can tell you it is gross outside today. It's absolutely disgusting. So we figured let's just play it safe and record from home. So, apologies for that if you like the in-person, and you're welcome if you don't like the in-person. We can't please everybody, but we're going to play it safe today, but we're still going to give you a good show. And Snake, I think, you know what, we saw this comment on last Thursday's show, and we can pull it up right here. Let's discuss this one, okay? Coming from François Bédard, all right? This is a fantastic topic. And I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on it, okay? He's asking, what is your methodology to create a draft ranking when you have players of different positions? Example is, a number 2 two-way center, more important than a number 3 offensive defenseman, right? And there's so many things to discuss on here, right? How do you rank players who play different positions? Do the rounds impact positional value, right? We talked at great lengths on this show about how, you get to the later rounds, you swing for the goalies, you swing for the high upside, right? It's a really interesting discussion. So Snake, you build draft lists every year. Tell us your methodology. How do you go about doing it?
Well, first of all, what I do is that I break it down into a million pieces, which means leagues, first of all, and positions. So I can start with goalies from Ontario, defensemen from Ontario, forwards from Ontario, and on and on. The Swedish League, the Finnish League, the USHL. And I even break down the USNTDP. Although they play in the USHL, I break it down also as a separate entity. So I might have, 25, 30 different entities that I break it into, maybe more if you include goalies, defensemen, and forwards. So it gives you a better picture of how to approach all this. Because if you just go, okay, sometimes it's easy. The top 5, top 6, top 10, you can always do without doing this. But at some point, there comes a point in the draft. What's the difference between the 20th player and the 22nd player? What's the difference between the 41st and the 43rd?
Yeah.
And I can tell you in junior hockey, I've seen years that our scouting staff would put together 200 names on the list. And I remember telling them, Guys, what is the difference between the 173rd guy and the 174th guy? Look, so the way I do it for the NHL is that what I do is that I have a good idea. Let's say, for instance, I have the US and TDP forwards. Well, I can easily put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say. And the defenseman, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, okay. So at least I know this guy is better than this guy because I'm comparing, apples with apples. And then you try to insert it into the USHL afterwards because the US and DDP plays in the USHL. So then you have a tighter list. So you put your USHL list, you put your NTDP list, you combine it. So now you shrunk it a little bit. And then so on and so on and so on. So the Quebec League, let's say you put a top 10, top 15 players, that realistically you're interested in. And then you try and mix it up with Ontario. Okay, is my number one from Quebec better than my number one from Ontario? I don't think so. Is he better than the second one? I don't think so. And on and on. So you try to insert it. Then you bring in the WHL. And then you try to insert it. So now you have a US list. You have a Canadian junior list, which is the bulk of the analysis, let's say.
Yeah.
And then you go through countries. And, okay, let's say you have 10 players from Sweden. And you have 5, 6 players from Finland. And 10 players from Russia. Then you try to mix the European because Central Scouting does it. They have a North American list and a European list. But I think Central Scouting at some point should do a combined list.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of weird to see a North American list. And I remember Zorowski was number 5 on their European list. But would he have been ranked on a combined list? So I think at some point you have to do it. But what I do is, I take Europe, I take the States, I take Canada, and also the breakdown in positions. Our listener is talking about defenseman, defensive defenseman, offensive defenseman, two-way centers. That I might take it into consideration, but I don't go as far as putting a separate list for these guys for one simple reason, is that an offensive defenseman in junior hockey could become a defensive defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah.
Some guys are drafted as defensive defensemen. Ben Denford, that we're going to see at the juniors, was drafted as a defensive defenseman. EJ Emery, who plays for North Dakota, was also drafted as a defensive defenseman. But in general, I'm only going to rank defensemen, and I'm not going to bother with right or left, okay, because it's too much.
Okay.
Also with centers and wingers, I don't bother too much because most centermen will end up on the wing in the NHL. They're not going to stay at center, and there's too many factors involved. But, of course, I take into consideration when I do a list, because I'm thinking, okay, this guy has more value if he plays as a center in the NHL. But I'm not going to do a separate list. So once I have those 3, I'm down to 9 lists, let's say. North America, Canada, US, and Europe. And then goalies, defenseman, forward. Then what I try and do, I try to put the goalies together. I try to put the defensemen together and the forwards together. I'm down to 3 lists. And now it's only positional. It has nothing to do with where the player plays. Goalies, I put aside. So now I'm down to defenseman and forward. And I'll explain why I put goalies aside. Now I have defenseman and forward. And I'm thinking, okay, does this forward have more value than this defenseman? Like, let's take more known players, okay? Let's say Keenan Verhoff and Gavin McKenna.
Right.
They're going to be at the top of the list, probably in the top 3 or 4. But now the question is, do I get more value with Verhoff or McKenna. And that's when the tough decisions come for teams when they put together their draft list.
Yeah.
And the goalies, what I do is that I have a separate list for goalies. But if I were at the draft table, I would probably consider them once all my, let's say, main impact forwards and defensemen have been chosen, depending on who the goalie is. If it's Andrei Vasilevsky, I think I had him number 2 on my list in 2012. But that's very rare. A Carey Price, for instance, that you're going to have in your top 5. But that's so rare. But if you go with players who are like goalies who are, let's say, good, but not necessarily great. Let's say Wallstead. Wallstead is playing very well for Minnesota, but let's go back to his draft year. Let's say you have a guy like Wallstead. Then you have to decide when should a team pull the trigger on him. So if you have the choice between like, I don't know, a possible 3rd or 4th liner or a 5th or 6th defenseman, and you really like that goalie, then I think it's okay to pull the trigger, because there's a theory that you shouldn't draft goalies in the first round. And you know what? I adhere to that theory to an extent. But if you do like a goalie very much, and at some point you run out of defensemen and forwards, well, why don't you take a goalie at 21 or 22 or 23, let's say? The Sharks last year, they took Ravensbergen at the end of the first round. They had 2 first-round picks, and they had the 33rd pick overall. So their plan was pretty much, okay, they took the forward, Misa, they took the goalie, Ravensbergen, and they took the defenseman with Simon Wang right in front of Zarovsky.
Yeah.
Look, Ravensbergen's okay. I understand the Sharks. They want to get goalies. It's good to get goalies. We always mention it. The Habs draft did tons of goalies in the last few years. That's great. But if you have Zarovsky and Ravensbergen, I don't think I would take the goalie in that situation. Yeah. So that's why you see a lot of goalies going in the second round right now. And if you notice that often when a goalie gets picked, let's say at 36, then another one is picked at 38, another one is picked at 40, because teams are thinking, okay, now the goalies are going. We can't miss on the top goalies.
Yeah. Every year it's like that.
So there's a bunch of goalies going because teams are thinking, okay, we can't wait until the 3rd round now. Because when the 3rd round comes, all the goalies we like are going to be left. And this is why, and I don't know about the NHL, because like I say, I've never worked in the NHL, but I do work in junior hockey. And what I've seen very often is that we do follow the list to an extent. But if we feel that a player is still going to be available, let's say 2 rounds later, we might take a guy who is ranked lower, but we think that teams might jump on him.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily cross out the names and take the next one. Yeah, for the first 15, 20 picks, of course. But then when it comes to the 35th, 40 pick, then very often we'll take a guy who's ranked 42 on our list ahead of a guy who's still around who's ranked 33rd.
Yeah.
Because we feel that, okay, or it's a matter of need. Because in junior hockey, it's different than the NHL. Because you kind of draft based on needs because of the churn, the rotation of players. Every 2-3 years, you have to retool your roster. Well, actually, every year you have to retool your roster.
Pretty much.
Because 3 20-year-old guys are gone. 4 or 5 more 19-year-old guys are gone. So you have to retool, and you have to think ahead. Okay, all my defensemen are like 19 years old. So you got to draft defensemen. So sometimes you're going to draft a defenseman, even though you might prefer a forward, because you're thinking, I need defensemen. I think it's the same thing with football in the NFL.
Yeah, that's it.
It's based on needs.
Crazy.
So junior hockey is slightly different from the NHL for that reason. But getting back to the NHL, I think best players available is what teams should do. And I think this is what they do in general. In general, you have the Kotkaniemi sometimes that go number 3 because you feel this is the only good centerman available in the draft. If we don't take him, we're not going to get one in the second round. So, yeah, this happens too. But usually I'm not saying it's a recipe for disaster, but it's, I think when you don't necessarily take the best player available is when you basically have pretty much the same opinion on a player, on 2 players. Okay, I like this defenseman. I like this forward. Okay, I think he's going to be a number 4 defenseman. This guy, I think he's going to be a second line forward. Okay, do you prefer having a defenseman or forward, depending not necessarily on your depth, but what is more tradable at some point? Is it easier, or can you get more value out of a defenseman than a forward on the trade market? And I think the answer is yes. Let's say, for instance, the Habs take Reinbacher a few years ago at number 5. Zachary Benson went number 13 for Buffalo. Small forward. He's good.
Yeah.
And I've heard people saying, oh, why didn't they take Benson? He would already have been in the NHL for 3 years. Yeah, sure. But if you like both, you're thinking down the road, what has more value? A defenseman, a 6'2" defenseman who's a good 2-way player, or a small forward who can make 25, who score 25 goals? I think the answer is pretty simple. So that's why I say that lists. I don't like lists, honestly. Every year I'm asked to do like a top 20, a top 30. It kills me because, it kills me. I mean, my list has no value in the sense that it's just for entertainment purposes. But I still want to do a good job at it because we have listeners and with their hockey pools and everything, and I don't want to look stupid. But the point is, I don't like doing lists because I'd rather have, like, let's say a top 5 or a top 10, and then players that I liked. Like, for instance, a few years ago, Brad Lambert. I said to Tony on one of his shows, no draft.
Yeah, I remember. Okay,
well, obviously, he probably would have been 60th on my list when you think about it. If I had to rank him, let's say I have a boss who's telling me, where would you rank him? I don't know, 50, 55, 60. But really, I don't care because I don't want the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let another team take him. That's it.
Yeah, and sometimes that's why I don't like lists, because sometimes I feel obligated to rank a player that I don't really like.
Yeah.
But, I can't go on a show like yours and say, oh, well, I don't like so-and-so. So although he's going to be drafted in the top 15, I don't like him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but would I pick him even if he were available at 40? Probably not. So it's a matter of preference. So I'd rather have, last year it was fun because I did a top 20, and then I had Pickford, I had Cooper Simpson, and I had and Zarovsky was already in my top 20, but I had Pickford and Cooper Simpson as my wildcard. So basically, if I'm at the draft table, all I'm thinking is, how can I get Pickford, Simpson, and Zarovsky?
Right.
That's my goal. So the Habs, let's say they take Zarovsky at 34. So I'm like, okay, 1 down, 2 to go. Okay, next round. I think I should take Simpson because he probably is higher on other people's lists. Okay, let's take Simpson. And then, okay, I have Pickford. He's still available. Go. The Habs got 2 out of 3, by the way.
Yeah.
They took Papanekis instead of Simpson. So that's how I would operate. And I have to say that from what I've seen in junior hockey, there's a little bit of that also. It's not that strict. But it would be interesting to ask an NHL scout, how strict they are. Because a few years ago, I went on a scouting trip. That was a long time ago. That was maybe 15 years ago. I went on a scouting trip to see the US NTDP because they were playing in Plattsburgh and Burlington. And I happened to do the trip with Phoenix or Arizona Coyote scout. And unfortunately, the scouting question died a few years later. But he was like 60 or something. And he had been a head scout for the St. John Sea Dogs when they won 2 championships. And I remember we were talking about, I was asking him about how it works, in the draft room, because he had just been hired by Arizona. And he told me that there's one year the GM walked into the room and there was only one thing that he didn't want the guys to do or wanted the guys to do. It was, this year, do not draft a goalie.
Wow.
That was it. The rest, they were free to do whatever they wanted. But one direction that they had was do not draft a goalie. Huh. And then he also told me that for regional scouts, sometimes it also depends on how much weight you have, how much experience, how much credibility, how buddy you are with the chief scout, because it's very frustrating for them when they go watch players all years, whether it be in the OHL, QMJHL, going into snowstorms, late at night, eat bad food, bad coffee. I'm just quoting him.
Yeah.
And he said, you get to the draft table, you push for a couple of players, but circumstances are that you're not going to get those players. So you go back home and you have the feeling that although you got a paycheck for it, that basically you contributed to nothing. So that was my little anecdote about
Snake, this topic is just incredibly fascinating to me because, I mean, you mentioned the NFL, and I'm glad you did, because, for anybody who knows football, I mean, it's almost impossible to compare a quarterback with a defensive lineman, right? But, certain teams are like, well, again, with the NFL, the thing is, these guys are ready to play right away, right? Yeah. Whereas the NHL is even harder because you're drafting 18-year-olds who will take 2, 3, 4 years to develop. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, you have different positions. It's not like basketball where it's like 5 guys on the court. Okay, some are bigger, some are smaller, whatever. You got goalies, you got defensemen, you got forwards, different positional groups. They bring different things. They develop differently. It's incredibly complex. And my follow-up question to you that I'm really interested about is flexibility. You mentioned that as well, right? Having a flexible list and strategy as well, right? Like the Habs did this with Lane Hudson. Okay, they had him way higher than 62nd, but they gambled and they're like, okay, we think he's going to fall down. Let's take Owen Beck at 33, and then let's hope Hudson is there at 62, and he was. Right. So teams kind of take those gambles. They kind of play on other teams' lists. And so you need to be flexible in that sense. So how many versions of your lists do you make every year? Right. So at this, let's say in December, you'll have a version of your Canadian forwards, your Canadian defense, right? And then in, March, you're going to have a different list. The list is going to change, right? Do you make different versions, or do you just kind of tweak with the one you have?
I only make 2. But you're going to be surprised as to when I make those lists. Basically, before the playoffs, before junior hockey playoffs, world championship, stuff like that, March. And then the next one is in June. And this is why sometimes I might come up with a guy that I mentioned that I'm very bullish on in March, and then come June, instead of having him ranked 8, he's down to 16. And some might tell me, why the heck did you move this guy down? Because his team was eliminated from the playoffs very quickly. How could he go down? What has changed? He hasn't changed. And I know for the NFL, you're going to have these analysts, the Mel Kuypers of this world. They have a list in January after the bowl games, and then the list evolves. And you're thinking, why is it evolving? They're not playing. Well, the reason is very simple, is that in the spring, you watch the playoffs, which are very important, but also you have time to go back and see players more and more and more. So instead of having like 4 or 5 viewings on a player, you might have 10 or 12 or 15 viewings, and that really helps. And this would explain why sometimes you you play yo-yo with your list, and okay, this guy goes 1, or should he be? And I know this is what's going to happen this year because there's no clear-cut number 1.
That's it.
It's probably the same thing with teams also, I would think.
It's crazy. I think we need to have a scout on, like an NHL scout.
That would be fun.
We need to have a guest on,
or a former scout who can talk freely.
Oh, that's a great point, actually. Yeah,
I know the NHL Network, sometimes they have a couple of scouts who tell anecdotes about how it works and everything. That would be very interesting.
That would be great. Let us know in the comments section if you have suggestions as to who we should reach out to. We'd love to hear from you. But I mean, Snake, we could go on for hours on this topic. I am fascinated. I've loved this discussion, and credit to Francois who asked the question and gave us the prompt there in the chat. And you can do so as well, okay? We encourage you all, interact in the chat, in the comment section. We might just take your suggestion.
Well, let's, at the end of the year, when I give you my top 20 or top 25 or top 30, instead of just breaking down the list and analyzing players, I'm going to tell you about the methodology, so we'll revisit what Francois was talking about today.
Perfect. That's perfect. I can't wait. That's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. Now, Snake, transitioning now to the World Juniors.
Yeah.
Okay. There aren't that many draft eligible players who play in the World Juniors because it's a U20 tournament. There's mostly 18, 19-year-olds, but you'll have the odd 17-year-old that'll be in the tournament. For Canada, we're thinking of Gavin McKenna, Keaton Verhoff, of course. There's a few others that I think Carson Carrolls is in there. There's going to be others on other teams, but before we get into the nitty-gritty and the teams and early favorites, I want to ask you how much value you put in a tournament like the World Juniors, since these 17-year-olds are playing against top competition and older competition, which is very important.
Yeah, well, the problem with this tournament is that it's a very short tournament where players are not used to playing together. So I'm always going to put more weight on a player's performance on his own team during the season. So you have to take all this with a grain of salt. I've been watching these World Juniors Championships probably ever since they existed, and it's really hit and miss. Some 17-year-olds are not that good, or don't play that much, but they become stars in the NHL.
Yeah.
Others play very, very well, but they don't end up being that good. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. But it's still going to be interesting to see a guy like Keaton Verhoff, because he's been playing with older guys this year, but most of them are not going to make the NHL, the guys he was playing against. Now he's playing a bunch of 19-year-olds who have a very, very good chance of making the NHL. Also, the opponent is very important.
That's it. If you're putting up 10 goals against Latvia, no disrespect, but it's not.
I don't really care. 6 points against Latvia, I don't really care. But one thing that is interesting for the small countries is that we're used to seeing them playing in their junior leagues, which are pretty weak. In this case, we see them against Canada, US, Sweden, Finland. So for Latvia, for Germany, countries like that, Switzerland even, it's good to see them against top junior players in the world because you get a good idea. I remember last year, not last year, but a few years ago, Germany had Stützle, Peterka, and Reichel.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So then you could see how these guys measured against 19-year-old North American junior players. And they were very good. All three of them were very good.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really interesting also for Canadian junior leagues, because there's an import draft every year during the summer. We're allowed to have 3 European players. And the performance at the junior tournament can be very interesting because it gives us a benchmark as to how they could be in our leagues. One anecdote before we move on. It was around 2011 or something, 2012. I remember Denmark was playing at the World Juniors, and tournament was in Canada, and Olivier Bjorkstrand was interviewed by TSN, and it was a late night game. You know, I think tournament was in British Columbia, and I don't think many people were watching, you know, Denmark against, I don't know, Norway or Latvia, but, you know, crazy guy here was watching, and he was interviewed, and he said, I really want to come to the CHL next year.
Ding, 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 ding.
I go back to my general manager and I say, look, this is the best Danish player I've seen in a long, long time. Probably as good as Lars Eller, let's say. So I thought for junior, I don't know if he's going to make the NHL, but for junior hockey, this is a pretty good candidate. And basically, long story short, we didn't take him, but Seattle did. And he had 2 100-point seasons, and the rest is history. Bjorkstrand's not having a very good season right now, but he had a pretty decent career so far. But in junior hockey, he was a star. And I remember seeing that GM a few years later, and he told me, he goes, man, I should have listened to you, because this guy would have saved my job.
Yikes.
So, look, but, you know, I'm not saying this to brag or anything. It's just to give you an idea how these guys can be, this tournament can be very, very useful, because you see things, you learn things, and but it's not the only source of players for junior hockey. Obviously, agents play a big part in all this, because not every European player wants to come to North America. Swedish guys, Finnish players, they don't come. The best ones don't come. You know, Ivar Stenberg did not come and play junior hockey here. So anyway, moving on to the other countries, I think Habs are going to have a few prospects. We talked about Carlos Hendel for Germany.
Yeah.
And I don't know what role he's going to have, but, you know, he was drafted by the Habs last year. Atos Koivu most probably will be on Finland's top 6. I think he's going to do well at the tournament. Yeah. I think he's going to do well. I don't know who he's going to play with, but they have guys like Emil Hemming, Konsta Elenius on the roster. So I think Finland will have a good, maybe not have great depth, but they're going to have a good top 6. But please, fans out there, don't get excited if he has 8 or 10 points at the World Juniors.
He did that this summer.
He's a 19-year-old player.
Yeah.
And you were asking me how much weight I put in this tournament. When it comes to 19-year-old players, 0. Yeah. Nick Suzuki was not good. Okay. Does it matter?
Look at him now.
Okay. And a lot of players who are going to be very good this year are going to be struggling in the American Hockey League next year. Whereas a guy like Beckett Seneca, who was left aside by Canada, is one of the top rookies in the NHL at age 19. But the 19-year-old guys that they chose, most of them are struggling in the American Hockey League. And you know what? Next week, we have a couple of shows before Christmas. I'm going to go through the list of players from last year who were 19 years old and see where they are this year.
That's good.
Yeah. So, and you'll see that a lot of them don't have Beckett Seneca's career so far. But I think this year Canada did not make that mistake. I think, they could have had Justin Carbonneau. I like Justin Poirier, Marek Vanacker. But in general, I like the team. And as for the other teams, I read something. The 16-year-old player, Max Penkin, who is seen by many as a possible number 1 overall pick in 2028. And he's been compared to Tim Stützle. He's playing in the men's league over there at age 16. But I saw a post that he had been injured and he was going to miss the tournament. The only problem, it was an Instagram post, but I can't find it anywhere else. So was it true or not? If anyone knows and can do a little research, although I've done the research, would be good in the comment section, because I would be curious to see Max Penkin play this year. As for Sweden, they're going to have Stenberg. We've talked about him quite a bit. And but most draft eligible players are in Trois-Rivières this week for the World Junior. We will discuss it next week.
Mm-hmm.
They have a few first round picks on that roster. And the States. The States, they haven't finalized the roster yet, but they should have a very strong team. Although I think on defense, Cole Hudson it will probably be the top defenseman in the tournament, but I don't know if that's going to be enough for them. But they have some interesting players. LG Mooney, maybe not. We'll see. Have prospects. So Mooney, Koivu, Handel, and Michael Hage for Canada, possibly top four top prospects for the Habs who are going to be at the tournament.
Those are players to watch.
We'll talk about it next week. We're hoping that rosters are going to be, but sometimes they only announce the final rosters on Christmas Day.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Especially this year. A guy like Trevor Conley is supposed to play for the States, but last night he was playing in the American Hockey League. So when are they going to send him? Because there's a selection camp that's going to go on, if not now. So it should be an interesting tournament to see prospects. I find it entertaining, but when you think about it, it's mostly there's just a few games that are really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Sweden, USA, Sweden, Finland, Canada. In the preliminary round, you can really pick and choose because, Canada, I think, is playing Denmark, is playing Latvia. Okay, they're playing Czechia, and they're playing Finland on December 31st, so that's good. So there's a few games. Sweden is playing USA, and there's a few interesting games where you can basically gauge players, but Latvia against Denmark.
Listen, no disrespect, but probably not the gold medal match there.
No, but like I say, it's interesting for scouts, for junior scouts, especially to see those players because
find those hidden gems.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, Snake, I'll put you on the spot here. You're a big boy. I know you can take it.
Yeah.
Who's the early favorite this year?
Hot take material.
There we go. It's Snake's hot take. Let us have it. Who's winning the tournament?
And you didn't know what I was going to talk about. That's the funny thing.
No,
so kept me in the dark. It was a great bridge because I didn't want to give you the answer right away. Well, for this week, I have to say that the last few years I've been very critical of Canada's roster. Mm-hmm. I really didn't like it, and
rightfully
so. Part of me was thinking, pardon me.
Rightfully so. They ended up being bad,
And part of me was thinking, I wish they lose. Because if they win, they're going to keep going with that strategy, which I really didn't like, that the way they build the team and always with these role players and leaving great players at home, just because, we need a fourth liner or we need a sixth defenseman. But 2 years in a row without a medal, I think. I don't think they had a medal for 2 years in a row.
Nope.
They changed their strategy. They actually acted on it because over the years they would lose 1 year and say, "Oh yeah, well next year, blah blah blah," and then they would win and it would be like, "Yeah, we see it works. Our strategy works." So they really changed it. I really I praise them for it. And although the States have a good team and you have to respect, Sweden and Finland and everything, I do think that Canada is going to win the gold medal. I don't know if it's going to be easy because it's a one-game final gold medal game. It's just one game. But if it were a best of 7, I think Canada would crush opponents. And even though, Celebrini, Schaefer aren't there, I think the addition of a guy like Michael Misa is very, very important to the team. And to me, look, I do think that Canada will win the gold medal this year, and I'm very bullish on my prediction.
Sweden's going to have a nasty team there, but they have the tendency to choke in the medal games. They go undefeated in the preliminaries, and then come medal time, doesn't happen. So
didn't they go undefeated for 15 years in a row? I think
it was crazy. Yeah, they went on a crazy.
And then boom, they're gone.
Yeah, no, they kept getting bronze, silver, no gold. It was crazy. But
Canada has everything on that team, and even the role players that they have are having good seasons in junior hockey right now. Offensively, like Cole Baudouin. I'm not a fan of Cole Baudouin as an offensive player, but he is at least having a good season this year in junior hockey. And like I say, Michael Misa. I mean, this is what. And who knows? Are they going to send Sam Dickinson?
Oh, that'd be big.
We don't know yet. We're still waiting on a couple of guys. I think Ben Kindell is going to stay in Pittsburgh.
He's not going.
I don't think he's going. But with what they have, Zane Perek is going to be very, very good also offensively. He should be running the power play.
Yeah.
And I think even if a couple of guys don't produce, because it always happens, there's going to be more guys available to score goals. Gavin McKenna is going to be very interesting. Yeah. Because don't forget that Gavin McKenna, had he stayed in the WHL, and if he were on a pace of like 3.5 points per game, no one would be talking about Keelan Verhoff or Ivor Stenberg or any other guy. Even Corey Pronman had Tynan Lawrence at number 1 on his list yesterday. I like Tynan Lawrence, but come on. I wouldn't have him at number 1. But still, I mean, at least he has a right to his opinion. And he's not just repeating what everyone else is saying. But I remember when I started talking about McKenna not being number 1 on that show, the weeks after the first lists that were published, have you seen McKenna number 2, McKenna number 3? But could his stock rise with a great tournament? It probably will. Will. But I'm not sure it's a good idea. You have to watch him in the context that he's playing. He's playing for Penn State right now. And you have to analyze him in this context. But he could have a great tournament, go back up the list. I'm not sure he should be the number 1 guy. Maybe he outplays Stenberg by a mile. But I don't think it's necessarily a good measuring stick.
Well, we'll see on December 26th. Let us know in the comment section which team you think will win the gold this year, and which players you're keen on watching play. I'm going to be with Snake here. I'm all on board on Team Canada. We got the Hunters running the ship. I got full confidence in this team. Let's bring it home, boys. Snake, before we move on, I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to thank our partners who make this show possible. I want to start off with a big thank you to these fine folks over there, Cheapest T-shirts. If you're looking for the cheapest prices on wholesale apparel in Canada, you will find them at cheapesttshirts.ca. They are proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers from coast to coast. They deliver unbeatable value every day. You'll always get the cheapest prices, plus same-day shipping and even next-day delivery, so your order arrives fast. Enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes online ordering a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. And a big thank you, of course, to our partners over at Betway. Don't select a bust with Betway and get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. You can scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. The offer is not available in Ontario, and you must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. All right, we have 2 questions to get to, so let's dig in the mailbag. Our first question comes from Amendel, I believe. Amendel. Anyways, asking, what are Snake's thoughts on North Bay's Alexander Karmanov? Now, for those who are not familiar with this player, he is a 7-foot defenseman. That's right. I did not stutter. 7 foot tall. Okay. So that's obviously, eye-popping. He's playing for the North Bay Battalion in the OHL. Snake, what do you think of him?
Look, I've watched his first 2 games. One game he played 4 minutes. The other game, I think he played 7 minutes. So that's not a lot. But what I saw is a guy who was surprisingly mobile, surprisingly decent skater for his size. He's towering over everybody. It's kind of interesting to see that when he goes in the corner to retrieve pucks, there are 6'1" guys who look very, very tiny next to him. And I think I do think he's going to be drafted. I think he's some kind of a project. What is he, 280 pounds? I think he's 280, or I don't know if he's 280. Look, it's these big center a la Shaquille O'Neal in basketball. That's a kind of that's what he looks like, towering over everybody. Yeah, I think he's very intriguing, just for the fact that he can play. Yeah, he can play, but will he make the NHL? I don't know, but it should be fun to watch in the next few years.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, for reference, Zdeno Chara was 6'9".
Yeah,
right. This guy's got 3 inches at least on Chara. What the hell, man? And he's 17. Yeah. He might keep growing. This is crazy. Anyways, I love that.
265 pounds.
My goodness.
As of now.
What are you feeding this guy? Good Lord. Anyways. All right. Well, thank you for the question there. And thank you to Jimmy in the comments in the chat there. He got us those numbers. All right. We got another question to get to. Let's bring it up here from Lou Mark, saying, a big fan of the show and the Snake. So am I. This is where I get all my fantasy pool info for the prospects. So clearly, Lou Mark is in a dynasty league. So we're going to try to help you here. Looking good so far with Connolly, Musty, and Cooper Simpson. Well done. Now I'd like to know, in order, points only, best potential. Benjamin. Oh boy, I'm gonna butcher this. Got to help me out here, Snake. How do you pronounce that?
Radiainen.
Radiainen. There you go. We'll call him Ben. Roman Kantsarov, ripping up the KHL right now, and Will Horkoff. Thanks, guys. All right, in order.
Look, I'm not a pool consultant expert because I like to evaluate players for what they bring on the ice, and sometimes when they bring on the ice doesn't add up to points, and also you don't know what kind of opportunity they will have because the guys you're mentioning are not top 5 picks. But
right.
I would tell you that on my list, Horkoff would be number 1 by far.
I
think he's the safest pick because he's going to be an NHL player. He's going to play for Pittsburgh. He's a winger. He can score goals. He's scoring at a high pace right now in the NCAA. Now, for the other 2 guys, it's a little bit more complicated because, yes, Kantsarov is very, very good in the KHL, but he's a small guy. We don't know how it's going to translate in the NHL, but I do think he's going to have a chance. Mm-hmm. Just the way another small guy got a chance this year, Tsiplakov for the New York Islanders, and I think he's better than Tsiplakov. So I would go with Kantsarov number 2. Radiainen, 4th round pick by the Lightning. He's doing well in Liga right now. He's 20 years old. Tampa has a knack, for finding good players. Yeah. So I'm not going to underestimate him, but he's under 6 foot tall. He's not a heavyweight. So I don't know about his NHL potential. So I would rank him number 3.
Fantastic. Well, that'll do it for us today. Snake, anything else to add before we bounce?
Nope. Next week is the last week before the Christmas break.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk, Habs, World Juniors. Jacob Fowler playing tonight. His first game.
Adam Engström drawing into the lineup for Arbor Jackeye. Owen Beck taking Jake Evans' place. We're going to have some stuff to talk about on Monday. Don't
Fowler and company on Monday.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun show. So you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. And hit the hype button. Tell YouTube to push this show to other people. We want more people in this family, all right? We want more people to have fun with us, and we have a lot of fun doing the show. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation in particular, Snake. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you to producer Jimmy back at Master Control, doing an excellent job as always. And thank you all for tuning in to another edition of the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. We'll see you Monday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Trust the Process on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.